Mythbusters to make sure that we're able to actually do what we try to do.
And he has, unlike either of us, an actual degree in engineering. So he's more qualified than we are to answer your questions.
So I hope you enjoy this company. Please send it back safe.
Thanks.
You go that way and I'll go that way, all right?
Perfect. In 3, 2, 1, go.
We're just getting started, too.
Totally.
Pretty cool job. So just a little bit of an update. This year was the last season of Mythbusters, and that was an older video. It's just one of my favorite ones. We actually ended after 14 years. So I actually returned back to the world of engineering. I work at a new company in Mountain View called Kitty Hawk, and like the show, I could never talk about what I was working on at the time. So hopefully in a couple months I can actually talk about what I'm doing. But just to clarify a few things before we get started, by the way, I'm not Grant. My mom to this day will still call me after watching an episode of Mythbusters and say, "Oh, I saw you on television." That wasn't me. But then the next week she'll call me again. She'll tell me, "Oh yeah, I saw you on television." And this time I'll say, "Yeah, that was me." So I kind of gave up after that point. So Mythbusters, if you can't tell from the videos, it was a show about taking myths and urban legends and testing them through the scientific method, and through experimentation. It was never meant to be an educational show, and I think that's why it was very popular. They weren't just people smell when you're just trying to teach them something. So we weren't trying to teach; we were just bringing you along for the story. And back in the day, it took generations, a long time, before these myths and urban legends will come out in everyday vernacular. The typical ones that everyone knows about. Everyone knows the 5-second rule, right? Same as, is it better to run in the rain or walk in the rain? Now, it depends on depending on your hairstyles, that's really the true answer to that. But thanks to startup companies like yourselves and everyone that's participating at this company, media has rapidly changed all of that. YouTube, Reddit, myths, urban legends happen instantaneously. So fast, no one can keep up with it. And the best part about it is when that comes up, you always have about 50% of the people who believe in it, 50% of the people who don't. You know, just like I'm pretty sure everyone is still wondering, can you retrieve your Pokeball by tapping on the screen? I'm sure if we look it up right now, there'll be a lot of people discussing that today. So thanks to things like this and media, that's why Mythbusters was around for 14 years. So thank you, startups. I appreciate it. You kept me paid for. I only worked for about 9 years. So even though we ended in 14 years, we tackled probably over, I think, 2,000 experiments. Is more than the number that was up there. Unfortunately, we did not get to do Random Death. I do apologize to all my Korean family. That was one that was always requested. We even got mail about it. It was always came in Korean. People would bring it to me, and you know, it couldn't be done. One of the other things that people always asked, and every time at a conference, people always ask me as well this question. They say, whoa, that we couldn't do as well. Discovery Channel didn't want us to do that, but I'm pretty sure everyone else does their own experiment at home when they go out, and they know the answers to this question. So, what does a producer do? Let's start. It's just to distract you, so you're not really paying attention to me. A producer produces. Their job is to set everything up. You know, we will sit down, we'll have a story, we'll go over an outline, what we think may happen. My responsibility is to get the permits, you know, talk to the right experts, gather everything. That's why my presentation is called From Coffee to Catalyst. Whatever goes wrong, if the coffee is wrong, that's my problem. If it goes right, then I get all the adulations. But it is a collaborative session. Everyone's always involved. Jamie and Adam, they're all through the thing. So instead of going through the show, or you know, I want to tell you a little story about one of my roles at Mythbusters. It was a specific story. One of the very first stories I did when I was younger, when I first started out there. So this project was called Water Heater Rocket. We always use whiteboards, even to this day, and I do that now in my company. I demand that I have to sit next to a wall so I can have a big whiteboard. By the way, if you're ever doing something that's called Water Heater Rocket, when you're writing up your permits, you're going to want to call it overpressurization of an enclosed water vessel. They don't like those other words when you ask for permissions to do those type of things. So, like I said, this was in the beginning. I always was an engineer before joining the show, and they just asked me. You know, I was working in the shop and they were expanding. The show was getting much bigger, and they knew me. So I was like, oh, sure, why not? I never, tried it before, so I figured I might as well go for it. So obviously, being an engineer, I was like, oh, okay, let's do something more than just what we're doing for the store. Let's add temperature and pressure gauges to this. They're like, great idea, Dan. Let's make it happen. The only problem is we were basically about to film in like 3 days. I don't know why I got myself into that. So first thing I started doing is I had to try to find all local vendors who has the equipment. This is way before Amazon Prime and Google Express. I had to find it on my own. And it was already late in the day. We didn't have much time, and you can't stop television. When you have a set schedule, you have a set schedule. I really had to resort to using the phone book. For those of you who don't know what a phone book is, there you go. So while I was struggling at night looking to see if I could find the sensors that I needed, we needed a specific set. It brought me back to the days when I used to work in New York City. As an engineer, that would happen to me time after again. Someone at the end of the day work, we need something, we need to order this, can you get it in tomorrow morning? Luckily, when you're on the East Coast, you get to call the West Coast and overnight everything. So that was always cool, but unfortunately I was in that situation. And this time around, the equipment that I found was on the East Coast. So I'm sitting there, have to wait till the next day to order everything. I order everything I need in the morning, ask them to rush delivery it, and from that point on, it was just a waiting game. Meanwhile, I'm still doing all my producing responsibilities. Finally, at the end of the day, of the next day, my shipment arrives. All day you're pressing track, en route. End of the day is when they deliver it. It was okay. I knew I could do this. But break open the box, get to work. Yes, this isn't sensors, this is television, so all they do is usually show sparkly things and sparks coming out of the thing. That's television. When you start watching other shows, you'll notice this is the easy part when you're making things. So here are my sensors. They're pretty outdated. This was we had to use a panometer for one sense or another. So I'm getting there at work. I have hundreds and hundreds of feet of line to start working on. No one else is in the shop. This is also in the early days of Mythbusters when we didn't have a large crew, so we had to do everything ourselves. Everything's going great. I'm getting tired, but to me, all of a sudden, I'm in the moment. I'm thinking, hey, this is my MacGyver moment. I'm going to save the world tomorrow. I'm going to get this all done. And I'm glad David played that video clip. But for those of you also who do not know Mythbusters, I'll let Matt Damon say.
Interface of overwhelming outside must with only one option. I'm gonna have to science the shit out of this.
So, pretty much this was a movie about engineers making stuff. At first everyone was like, you're gonna make a movie out of engineers making stuff and you're gonna make it for 2 hours? Most people didn't buy it, but once they got Matt Damon, there you go. So, I think that's great for most of us engineers, finally having a movie about engineers. But back to work, getting all my sensors up and going. It's getting late at night, almost midnight, but I think, I'm high. I'm really excited. I'm like, this is gonna happen. I'm gonna make this happen. Then I learned a very, very, very valuable lesson that day. You know what the most dangerous tool in the shop is? An X-Acto knife. Cutting all those wires, man. I thought I could handle it, but nope. I had to go to the hospital. 4 hours, which was, I had a 4-hour break, I guess. Had about 20 stitches. Really probably about 4, but my story's always going to say 20 stitches. Finally get out of the hospital, and I had to go back to work. I had to get right back to work. I started screening everything. This is our office. It's a pretty fun office to be in, except if you're going to be in an earthquake. And I get back to my sensors. These aren't pictures of the sensors. This was something else, but I figured you're sick of hearing me talk about sensors. And if you want to hear about what this happened, you guys are going to have to invite me back next year. So, I'm doing well, getting it going. It's pretty late. It's getting pretty early, like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. Now I have to set up panel meters. Got to set all the settings. And panel meters have UI designs from like the 1970s. Terrible. Worst thing in the world, very non-intuitive. I don't know what that is. So I start looking through all the instructions. It's all in German. It's in Chinese. It's in Spanish. I finally find the English section. I still don't know I still don't understand. I don't know what's going on. And then it dawned on me. I'm like, wait a minute. There's no instructions in Korean. First of all, I don't speak Korean that well. I don't understand it that well. But first of all, why are we left out of this? I don't understand it. I was upset about it. Korea is one of the most technologically advanced countries out there. We should at least be on this piece of paper. So, I'm pretty much at my wit's end. Losing it, I'm like, I failed. I can't believe I'm going to fail when my first big story's out there. But then it dawned on me. I ordered these parts from the East Coast. Remember this map? They're open now, even though it's still 5 a.m. in the morning. So I give them a call, and I got it all set up. I was very happy. I was very proud of myself. I know they're just little sensors, but it was, for me, I was living out my childhood dreams. Science shows is the reason why I became an engineer. Even though it just looks like this, just these 2 little meter panels. And I know today we could probably do it over Bluetooth with our cell phones, but this is what I had to work with. May I present to you guys with override pressurization of water vessel. so on to one of the main reasons I came here is about blending storytelling and science. Now, I get asked that question a lot. How do you merge storytelling and science? And I think that is where the problem lies. People consider them separate entities. But the problem is they're not separate entities. Science, the process of sciencing and engineering something is just another genre of storytelling. It just has more numbers and charts. They both have their own themes. They both have a narrative which connects very important information together. They both have a progression where it brings interests and leads you eventually to a conclusion or an end. Way back in the beginning of the days, cavemen would paint on the walls. Someone had to invent the cave paint. Same with fire. Someone had to invent fire so they could read those cave paintings. So our history is all about storytelling and the invention of science. We shouldn't be separating them. These days, luckily, there's a STEM initiative. I like to call it STEAM, and I hope they actually will officially change it. I believe that the A in art should be in there. Anyone artists here? Oh, wrong room. Don't make fun of them too much. I know they want to come up with crazy ideas, but we come together and we come up with usually really cool projects. And through STEAM, you always hear about everyone can be a scientist. Everyone can be an engineer. We shouldn't be bound to it, and that's a great thing. Well, one thing is you never really hear them saying that you could be a storyteller. Never, ever. They always show great leaders in science and technology speaking at conferences. Then they left to tell you what they are the leaders of their science and technology field. Of course, they have something to say. Storytelling is hard. It's not easy. Telling a good story is even harder. For example, myself, I get an advantage. I get to play some videos and show some pictures, and now we're halfway done. So one of the big things is the perception. Everyone thinks that you have to get up to tell a good story. You have to get up in front of an audience. They say a lot of people are afraid of public speaking. They always feel like they don't have anything interesting to say. That's not true. Everyone has something to say. Doesn't matter whether it's outwards, you put on a new shirt, you walk into the office, whether you're sleeping at your desk, you're telling a story. Telling a story about yourself. Whether you sing, you're cooking, you're dancing, whatever you're doing, you are telling a story. And it's not limited to just who you are. It's now, thanks to all this media, you're projecting what you do. You can squeeze 140 characters into nice prose. You can string 6-second videos into a highlight reel. You can post your posts. Yes, posting your posts. That's why I became an engineer. I don't know if that's grammatically correct, but we'll go with it. Using a verb in your own nouns. So, this part I need to read because I had an epiphany last night. I have to write this down. Let's see if I can get this right. So every time you express yourself in whatever manner, medium, style, projection, whether it's in the abstract or plain text, or through whatever app you currently have installed on your phone, you're telling a story. Not only a story, but your own story. And when you share that to the outside world, and you are contributing to the knowledge base of everyone around you. And that's a very important thing. However, I've seen some people's posts and you shouldn't. Some things you should. So, let me close out with this, that just as in the rigors of the process involved in science, make sure your story stays true to yourselves and make sure you share it. Thank you.
So the rest of the hour, we're going to open up the floor for Q&A. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand and you can ask a question. Hi, good morning.
Okay.
So most of the time, engineers are not a good storyteller. That's how we perceive it in today's world. And it seems like you're a pretty good public speaker and you're a pretty good storyteller. Is there something you did differently? Is there something you trained yourself, or how did you become a good storyteller?
So, I hate public speaking. It scares me all the time. Every time I get up, I'm very nervous. But no, I actually forced myself. My very first public speaking event was at KAIST. Jamie, one of our hosts, got an invitation for them to speak, and he was like, "Oh," he passed on my information to talk. So they invited me. And I was like, okay, let's do this. I get a free trip to Korea, why not? Then I was thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. I'm terrible at this. But it was too late. I was committed, and I did it. And that day, I never left my hotel room. I just was working on my presentation. It is all about practice. It's about challenging yourself. It's another side of engineering that people don't know. You have to share your ideas. There's a lot of great inventors out there, but we've all heard it before. Many of them have never made their invention public to the world. You have to share it. You have to share your ideas. These days, engineers, especially luckily for startups, you have to get out there. Especially the really smaller guys who are just trying to break out. And eventually they all become better speakers. I'm pretty sure Mark Zuckerberg was not a great speaker, but they are now. And you have to just you have to challenge yourself and put yourself in that position. Start small, whether it's just you just want to tell jokes to your colleagues. Just get out there. There's no easy way about it. Like I said, storytelling is hard, and telling a good story is even harder, but you should try it. Yes, sir.
So we always say that society doesn't have enough appreciation of science. And then we also, I'm wondering now, before we get to that, I'm wondering, is there some kind of a vetting process? Or do you have some kind of verification process you go through, consult others, etc. Before you put a story out there or a show out there, you have a sounding board, somebody that you can talk to.
Yes, well, I'll answer that two parts.
So take us A through Z, what happens?
Okay. See if we have time for that, but one of the great things is that the mass audience is always appreciative of our technology, but they may not always understand. That's why you're always trying to share. In the confines of the show Mythbusters, basically most of the story ideas come from the public. It's when they're debating it, that's kind of how we choose it. And just like any other science experimentation, we actually follow the steps. We don't skip anything, and we know we're not true scientists. Our goal is to investigate, and we bring everyone along for the ride. It's part of the story. We're not trying to create anything new. We're not trying to make something up, but we follow where our leads goes. We do the same things. We ask the question why. We come up with a hypothesis. We come up with an experiment to test it out. We observe what happens, and then we draw a conclusion from it. And that's what we do exactly in the show. We don't even try to come up with something new or crazy, and it just comes out to, it always comes out entertaining because they aren't scientists, they're special effects guys. And even when they mess up, that's a good result. Most people remember it, and it's usually funny. And then, the final part is we have millions and millions of people who will judge us and criticize us or compliment us if we did something correctly, or if they want us to view another aspect of it. Because when you do test out something, just like in science, you test out one particular avenue of it, you set your boundaries and your conditions, and you test that thing. And sometimes in the show, you can't tackle everything. You want to tackle everything, and even as it is, you miss like only 1% of the what we film makes it on there. And then if it draws enough interest from the mass audience, other scientists will call us up. And we always say we only have 5 participants. We're only running 5 studies or something like that. I'm not saying this is. We just want to get people interested, and we'll let the professionals take it further.
What is your favorite episode?
It was actually Water Heater Rocket.
Could you walk us through what was your assumption and what
So,
were you trying to prove?
So for that myth was actually, can a water heater go through your roof from the basement? And most people have their water heaters, especially in the East Coast, they have their water heaters in the basement. So can it go through the roof?
What brought you that you want to answer the question?
I think that was just an article that came up in the news, and a lot of times people don't believe it because they say, oh, well, it's just some insurance scam.
I see.
And a lot of our stories were always based off of someone getting hurt or injured. But luckily, we were all still alive. I have all my fingers. you know, like I said, all the stories are usually brought to us, or basically every day of our lives too. Everything we see, whenever I watch TV or a movie or a commercial, I'm thinking it could make a good episode.
What's your opinion about fan death?
Fan death? It's false. It's not true. Please don't believe it anymore. I'm pretty sure it was back in the whatever 60s or 70s. The Korean government didn't want everyone using the electricity, so they just came up with it. Or, but yeah, I remember when I was younger, my relatives would always turn off the fan, no matter how hot it was. I'm sure everyone remembers that.
And the reason you guys couldn't test is because it
Because
somebody's live on it.
well, it's also because you just have someone sitting in a room with a fan on. I don't think you can,
Okay,
as
so-
much as we would try to make that interesting.
It's like a 5-minute show then.
Yeah, and then I think a couple of people on YouTube did it, so which is great about YouTube.
okay.
People became their own Mythbusters live news shows, did similar experiments, which is a great thing. That means it spurred on new generations of scientists and engineers. I meet grad students all the time who said they went into science because of Mythbusters. So it makes me also feel, it makes me happy, but also makes me feel really, really old. So.
Anything you can share with your future endeavor, like what you're looking for?
For my future?
Yeah. What's your next step now that Mythbuster is done?
So I got a new job at an engineering startup, which is pretty cool. I actually met them through the show, and I do some things similarly to Mythbusters, but now I'm more an engineer. I was pretty much setting up crash test dummies to crash into whatever I'm working on that I can't talk about. And those are the things. I'm always an engineer who is very hands-on. So if you're a mechanical engineer, I suggest you get, learn how to weld a machine. It's a great process of going through that. It makes you a better engineer. And if you have any other questions, I belong to Korean American National Society in San Francisco. Feel free to contact me. It's an easy email to remember.
Does someone have any questions?
Are there any experiments you do it and it goes in wrong way or don't work and it take time and money?
Yes, lots of them. Almost all of them. Like we said, a lot of them are actually good. Like I said, so these guys are learning and they fail, and then they get, they start from scratch over again, and this is part of the show. Sometimes that we can't show that on the show because it took up too much time. There have been some stories that we had to abandon just because of scheduling or funds. But in some form or manner, then usually the hosts get to talk about that as a learning experience and why it may have failed or why we didn't have the time or resources. But we always hope when we talk about that other institutions may be interested in performing those experiments. Oh, yes?
What was like the most epic fail episode?
Oh, okay. That would be Jado Rocket 2. So Jado Rocket was a myth about, there's this old retiree who found some Jado rockets from military surplus and he put it on his car. He took it out to the desert, he drove, and he launched off and hit a mountainside 2 miles away. So the very first episode of Mythbusters is them testing it out. They, it took a while, but they were able to replicate a Jado rocket and put it on a 67 Chevy Impala. And that took off. I mean, they were in open desert, and it just, it was amazing. We can show videos. You can look it up. But they never got it to launch off a ramp. So that was part number 2. So we go out to the desert, we set everything up. We get these rocket experts in to really make sure we're doing this right. As it gets on the ramp, it explodes. And we're all like laughing. We spent a lot of time, weeks were out in the Mojave Desert, and it went down. So, I'm not saying it's the rocket guy's fault or anything, but, and one of the other, we've had some other failures and we've had one other accident, but it was one of those things that we would have turned into its own story. But, those are how we learned, and we actually did Jado Rocket 3, which I was a producer on, which was my second favorite episode. First because I was nominated for an Emmy for that one, so that's why this is my second favorite. Yes?
So if you had to change the way we teach students engineering at the university, how would you change it?
Oh, I think about that all the time. First of all, actually, when I was in school, it wasn't until I got in college, my first 2 years were a little rocky. It wasn't until I got cable television I was able to watch science shows again, my grades went up again. I think it's getting them interested in any manner, means necessary. That's why shows, movies, you know, they stretch the imagination. You don't want to force people to learn something. You want them to get engaged with it, and you want them to study the things that appeal to them. You're not. So you do have to, change up the curriculum. You can't force someone who wants to be an artist to learn differential equations. But for those, who want to be in it, you constantly have to encourage it to them. And then those who aren't as interested, you make sure they know it's out there. Show it to them. Don't force it on them. Let them discover it for themselves.
Yeah, if there's no any other question.
Actually, I have
Oh yeah,
one.
good. Yeah, sorry.
Most problems are interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary and cross-disciplinary in nature.
Yes, and that's definitely that's a social question, and it's right. There's a lot of maybe a product of your environment. The access to information is harder. I think that's why a lot of companies are trying to do good work, like Facebook, Google. They're trying to get access to everyone, internet access to everyone. And those are problems that the government and people are going to have to solve. Fortunately, everyone in technology is always trying to solve those problems, getting information out there, as well as trying to solve social problems and issues out there. All right, thank you very much,
Okay,
guys.
thank you for your time.